In alhamdulillah wa salat wa salam ala wa rasulullah. We are continuing with the hadiths from Sahih Muslim, Kitab el Salat, the book of prayer. Today we're going to move on to the next chapter, which is a very important, informative chapter because it addresses the prayer of the traveler. It also addresses combining and shortening the prayer, which I get so many questions about every day. Okay? But before I speak about that, I want to speak about something that many brothers ask me about. That is the canute, the dua canute, or the supplication that the imam recites whenever calamity befalls the Muslims. Nowadays, you go to the mosque, you hear a lot of imams reciting the dua canute about what's going on in Syria and Afghanistan and all of this. And I get a lot of brothers asking me, what are the conditions for that? Is it something that should be done and all of that? Well, let me share this hadith with you. The Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, whenever the Muslims were encountering hardships from the Quraysh, or even from a drought, say Allah sent a drought to the land, or there was no rain or something, or even if the Prophet wanted to curse someone for what they were doing to the Muslims, he would do it during the Fajr prayer. He would do it at the end of the Fajr prayer. When he said Allahu Akbar for bowing, then he would lift his head and he would say, Allah listens to he who praises him. Then he would say, save whoever he wanted to save, or bless whoever he wanted to bless, or curse whoever he wanted to curse. So the Prophet would do the dua canute during the Fajr prayer. The Fajr prayer, after the bowing in the last rakat. You find a lot of imams doing it all the time now. You go to the Jummah prayer, you go to every prayer in the world, they're doing all this and they do it over and over and over and over again. The Prophet did it for 30 days. One of the companions tell us that the Prophet would recite the canute after ruku'ah, after bowing in prayer for 1 month. Okay? He would also recite it to bless people for 1 month. Many people said, well, he did it for a month because that's how long it took. But the bottom line is he didn't do it for a long time. He did it for a short period of time. The Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam would observe canute in the Fajr prayer after the last bowing, and he did it for a short period of time. He didn't do it every day for 10 years like you see Muslims doing now. And again, these hadiths speak about him doing it in the Fajr prayer, not every single prayer like you see the imams doing today. Okay? So that's what the canute is. The dua canute, or the supplication of canute, the imam can recite it after the final ruku'ah in the Fajr prayer. And again, our Prophet here never did it more than 30 days. He never did it more than 30 days. You might have to do it longer, but not like no years like these brothers are doing. Okay, so that's the dua canute. And that answers the question that a couple of brothers asked me about the dua canute. And also, guys, what about this? How many people ask this question? Sister Layla, I missed my prayer. How do I compensate for it? First of all, I want you guys to understand there is no compensation for deliberately, intentionally missing a prayer. For example, there's a lot of Muslims I know who go to work and they don't pray. They wait till they get home from work and now they're going to make all their prayers. I'm going to make my dhuhr, I'm going to make my asr, I'm going to make my isha now that I'm at home. No. Every prayer must be prayed within its time frame, guys. You cannot deliberately, intentionally decide you're not going to pray now and you're going to make it up later. In fact, the only valid excuse for missing a prayer is you overslept. You went to sleep and you didn't wake up in time. Or you forgot. You were so busy doing something that you forgot to pray. For example, I'm so busy teaching, I forgot to make dhuhr or whatever. And that's based on the following hadith. We have a hadith here that the Prophet went on an expedition to Khyber. He traveled one night and stopped to rest and became sleepy. He told Bilal to stand on guard, and Bilal prayed as much as he could while the Prophet slept. And when dawn came, Bilal had overslept too. The Prophet basically woke up and said, "Oh my God, Shaitan caused us all to oversleep and miss the Fajr prayer." So the Prophet immediately got up, made wudu, and told everybody to make wudu, and he led them in prayer. And when he finished, he told the people, whenever you forget a prayer, then you should make it as soon as you remember. Because Allah says, observe the prayer for remembrance of me. Okay? Also, guys, the Prophet said, whoever sleeps through a prayer, he said there is no negligence in sleep, but the negligence comes when you are awake. In other words, Allah doesn't hold us accountable for what we forget to do or for what we don't do when we're sleeping. But he does hold you accountable for what you intentionally and deliberately do when you're awake. He said if a person forgets a prayer or sleeps through its regular time, then you should pray it as soon as you wake up or pray it as soon as you remember. So all this nonsense where a lot of Muslims do not pray their prayers on time, they think they can make them up later. Astaghfirullah, there's no making up the prayer. You cannot make the hands of time go backwards. We have a hadith where a person asked the Prophet about that. They said, "Oh Prophet, should we not repeat our prayer or make our prayer up tomorrow the regular time?" And the Prophet said, "You think Allah, would Allah forbid interest and then turn around and accept it from you? Would Allah say interest is haram and then turn around and say it's okay? No, you done missed your prayer." So I want you guys to understand there's no making up a prayer that you intentionally missed. The only thing you can do is ask Allah to forgive you. If you also, for all the years that you did not pray your prayers on time, you waited till the next day to make your prayers or hours later, you cannot make up for that. The only thing you can do is ask Allah to forgive you and never do it again. When you take your behind to work, you take a break. You don't have to tell your boss what it's for. You just take a break and say, "Oh, I need to go on a 10-minute break." And you go find a room somewhere to pray. You do not pray it at home outside of its time. Everybody understand that? Very important points to be made. And now that brings us to the question, what about traveling? What about shortening my prayer when I travel? Well, Allah made the religion easy for us. If you are traveling, Allah allows us to shorten the 4 rakat prayers down to just 2 rakats, as long as you are on a journey. And you can continue to shorten that prayer by praying the 4 rakat prayers as 2 rakats, as long as you are on a journey, as long as you are a traveler, even if it meant years. Does everyone understand that? There is no time limit. Say, for example, I'm out of town for my job for a month. I'm going to be gone for 30 days. I'm staying in a hotel for 30 days. I can shorten my prayers. I can to 2 rakats. I can shorten Dhuhr and Asr and Isha to 2 rakats. The whole month I'm there. The Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam stayed during some of his journeys for 19 days, and he only prayed 2 rakats. If we stayed in a place for 19 days, we would not pray the complete salat. We only prayed 2 rakats. So here you can see these are all hadiths proving that the Prophet would stay for 19 days or more and still just shorten the rakats. In the beginning of Islam, all the prayers used to be 2 rakats. But then when the Prophet went on his night journey, Allah increased Dhuhr and Isha and Asr to 4 rakats. But when you're traveling, you can pray the 4 rakat prayers as 2 rakats. Maghrib remains the same. Fajr remains the same. Does everybody understand that? Also, there is no such thing as having to travel for a specific distance. A person is considered to be a traveler whenever you leave your place of residence to go to another part of the world that's not familiar to you. That's a traveler. So it's not based on miles. There are some Muslims that say you have to travel 4 miles. That's not true. If I'm going someplace just 1 mile away from my regular residence, I can shorten my prayer. Anas tells us that we left Medina to Mecca with the Prophet, and he prayed 2 rakats for each prayer until we returned back home to Medina. And a person asked him, how long did he stay in Mecca? He said he stayed in Mecca for 10 days. So again, this shows that there's no time limit on how long you can shorten either. He did 19 days one time, 10 days here. And again, the prayers that we shorten, Anas said the Prophet said 4 rakats for the noon prayer while at Medina, but then he did 2 rakats for the noon prayer when he went to Dhul Hulaifa, which is a suburb of Medina. So again, whenever you leave your regular place of residence, you can shorten your prayers. It's not based on mileage. And again, there is no time limit. We have another hadith where the Prophet stayed in Tabuk for 20 days and he shortened his prayers for 20 days while there. So again, this shows how Allah tries to make everything easy for us. In addition to being able to shorten your prayers when traveling, the voluntary prayers can be prayed while sitting. They can be prayed while you're in your car sitting or while you're on your camel sitting. The Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam used to say his voluntary prayers while riding on the back of his camel, regardless of what direction it was going to. So you don't even have to face the Qibla when you're making your voluntary prayers while traveling. Whatever direction the car is in, you can do your voluntary prayer. The Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam used to pray on the back of his donkey while his face was turned towards a different direction. So again, guys, you see how Allah made this religion so easy for us as Muslims. And not only can we shorten our prayers while traveling, We can also combine them too. It is allowed for us to combine the Dur and the Asr prayer together while traveling. And we can combine the Maghrib and Isha prayer while traveling. I can choose to pray them both at the time of Dhuhr, or I can choose to pray them both at the time of Asr. You guys understand that? Say, for example, I'm traveling, and when I get to the place, it's time for Asr. It's time for Asr. Yeah, I can choose to make Asr and Dhuhr together. Or I could have waited until I got to the first place and prayed Dhuhr and made Dhuhr and Asr together. So I can combine them at any time during those two times. And the same with the Maghrib and the Isha prayer. If I'm traveling, I don't have to pray Maghrib. When the Maghrib comes in, I can wait till Isha time and pray Maghrib and Isha. You guys see that? Ibn Umar tells us when the Prophet was in a hurry on a journey, he would combine the Maghrib and the Isha prayer. And there's many other hadiths. The Prophet would delay the Maghrib prayer and instead make it with the Isha prayer. See, there's the proof. I can wait. I can say, well, I'm not going to make Maghrib right now. I'm going to wait till I get to the next place and make it with Isha. See, this is what the Prophet used to do. So again, guys, Allah makes it easy for us to travel and still perform our prayers. We can combine them and we can shorten them. And it's not just when we're praying either. We can combine our prayers even when we're not traveling. Does everybody understand that? Say that you're sick. I remember Sister Izdihar. May Allah bless her. May Allah forgive her of her sins. May He make her grave wide and spacious and filled with light. And may she be flying around the throne of her Lord that she loves so much, as that beautiful, beautiful green bird with those gold bracelets on. I remember when Izdihar first became sick. She said, Sister Layla, I don't feel good. Can I combine my prayers? I said, yes, you can. You can pray your Dhuhr and Asr together. And you can pray your Maghrib and Isha together. The only prayer that we cannot combine is Fajr. Fajr's prayed by itself. So even if you're sick, say you're too sick, you can't get up out the bed, or you're just too sick, you got the flu. I combine a lot when I get the flu. Because I go into asthma and stuff, I make my Dhuhr and Asr together. And I make my Maghrib and Isha together. You can combine if there's a need due to illness or something. So it doesn't have to just be limited to traveling. If there's a reason, even the weather. Say, for example, the weather is bad. It's a snowstorm or it's raining hard. The Imam can combine the Dhuhr and Asr prayers together. So the people don't have to come back out in the bad weather. So combining the prayers is not just limited to traveling. It can be at home too if there's a pressing need. The key is there must be a pressing need like sickness, or the weather is bad, or I just can't get up. My arthritis has hurt me. I can't stand up, so I'm going to just make them together. It has to be a pressing need. So as you can see, guys, we learn a lot from these hadiths today. And there needs to be so many more Muslims in these classes. You learn that first of all, when we're going through a hard time, the Imam can recite the Qunut prayer during the Fajr prayer after the final bowing. And the Prophet used to do this, but he didn't do it for longer than 30 days. Also, we learned today that there is no such thing as making up a missed prayer unless you overslept or unless you forgot a prayer. And in this case, you have to make the prayer as soon as you remember. We also learned today the mercy of Allah, that even if we're traveling, when traveling, you can shorten the 4 rakat prayers down to just 2. We also learn that you can combine your prayers when traveling. You can perform the Dhuhr and Asr prayer together, either at the time for Dhuhr or the time for Asr. And you can also combine the Maghrib and Isha prayer together, either at the time of Maghrib or the time of Isha. Okay? And also, you learn today that a person is considered to be a traveler as long as he is away from his home and unsettled. It's not based on a time limit. If you're gone for 2 years and you're living out of a suitcase, you're considered a traveler. And you can combine and shorten your prayers during that time. Also, a traveler is not determined by miles or distance. Whenever you leave your regular place of residence, you are considered a traveler. And we also learned today that your voluntary prayers can be performed sitting while you're riding in your car, and it doesn't matter what direction you're facing. And finally, for today, we also learned that you don't have to be a traveler to combine. You can combine your prayers whenever, I repeat, whenever, I repeat, whenever there is a pressing need. And a pressing need could be sickness, a pressing need could be bad weather, a pressing need could be your job. Something's happening at your job that's going to prevent you from praying the next prayer so you can combine. Whenever there's a pressing need, see the hikmah of Allah. Accept the concessions of Allah. Our religion is not as hard or difficult as many ignorant Muslims try to make it out for us. Okay, so we'll stop right here for today. If there's any hadiths here that you don't understand, if there's something that you need more clarification on, or if you have any other questions about anything Islamic, you can go ahead and type them on the screen and I'll answer them for you. Subhanakallahumma wa bihamdika ashhadu an la ilaha illa anta astaghfiruka wa atubu ilaik. Questions, comments, you can come up, go ahead with them.